Hey guys, in today's video I'm recreating a scene from a photo taken by a photographer on Instagram. I found Olmo Blanco on Instagram a while back, and he is a photographer, filmmaker, and has done incredible, beautiful little scenes in abandoned places, and I thought this one would be really fun to try and recreate. As you know, I really love to recreate some of these abandoned places, and this one, especially with his colors and his edit, I really liked the idea of recreating the scene to look a little more surreal and colorful than my usual works. I designed all of these pieces in Shaper 3D on my iPad Pro and then 3D printed them. You might remember a couple of videos back, Anycubic sent me this Photon Mono X 6K to try out for the channel, and I've been loving it. Anycubic is actually sponsoring this video, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how I've been using this printer specifically. My first couple 3D printers were from Anycubic, and all of my previous printers from this were all the smaller standard size resin printers. I was never able to print large pieces like this door in one piece, and I found that it took a lot of time to print many small pieces as well. With this printer, for larger scales like 1/18 or 1/12 even, I can print many full-size pieces or tons of little pieces all together, which makes the whole printing process way faster. I also purchased the Wash and Cure Plus from Anycubic myself, and it has made the cleanup and curing process way quicker, way cleaner, and more fun, honestly. I have the option of taking the prints off of their supports and dunking them in, or putting the build plate of the Mono X 6K right in to wash, and it does a great job of washing. Then I just take the tank off and convert it to the curing mode and quickly and easily cure my prints, and I've really enjoyed the process. If you're interested in any of the Anycubic printers, there's a link in my description with some of the sales that they have going on for this holiday season. I would definitely recommend this one or their smaller Photon Mono. I also printed both of these Cthulhu statues out at the same time on the Mono X 6K, and as you can see, the details are really sharp. These are an STL file by Fotis Mint, and I have him linked in the description as well. For me, 3D printing is a really big part of how I make my pieces because I want them to be realistic, and 3D printing allows me to get detailed designs and sharp edges that otherwise would take me a very long time to do by hand if I could even do it. And that allows me to accomplish more for this channel, and honestly I wouldn't be able to keep up with the videos on this channel without it. So thank you very much Anycubic for sponsoring this video. So at this point I'm just adding some weathering with some pigment powders and watered down paint, and next I'm going to work on the doors. I've really struggled to figure out a way to secure miniature hinges to 3D prints. They come with tiny little nails that you're supposed to use, but the resin is way too hard for that. So I've used different glues, and I usually end up gluing the hinge shut and whatever. So I was able to get these on enough to have the detail of the hinges and to glue the doors in place, but they don't function. I also added a clear plastic sheet in the back for the window and started painting these using my liquid latex technique. Now to start on the other part of the scene. I printed these columns out as well as some details for the walls, the archways, and started gluing some of these pieces together. For the lower wall pieces, I just cut some pieces of foam core and started gluing all of these together. I used super glue and activator for a lot of this so that I could get these in place quickly and not have to hold them in these weird angles for too long. Then I added these little pieces of balsa wood and some trim to frame out the tops of these. To get a decent texture of concrete, I'm using some joint compound on the floor, and I'm going to put it on the walls and columns. I probably don't need to do this. I could get this type of texture with paint, and I might try that in a future video, but I know that this technique works for me and I like the texture it gives when I paint it. It's really hard to pick up on camera, but I did a number of layers of different shades of paint with really low pressure on my airbrush to get speckling. It really just adds to that texture of concrete and variation of colors. Then I moved on to the wood floorboards for the front of the diorama. I started cutting random pieces, lengths, and putting them together so that there was a lot of intersection. It just gives a nice look, especially when you weather them. So I started to chip a couple of them, gouge them a little bit with this tool, and then took a wire brush to really weather these things to make them look a lot older once I paint them. After I primed the floor, I used a couple different types of washes to just add subtle variations here and there and not go overboard. I used some dark grays, some blacks, some browns, different areas, and I really like how the wood soaks up the paint. But at some point, I made sure to do a layer of matte varnish, and that just seals it in better, and so I can put washes on top that will be a little more potent. I asked my wife Rachel if she could draw out the design that was on these concrete walls. So on her iPad, she drew out this design, and it came out really well. I just had to print it onto some decal sheets and apply them. After soaking the decal in some water, I used some decal fix from Vallejo and slid the decal off. I did this a couple different times and messed up a lot. It is a really fragile decal, but I think they worked out really well. I then added on these two pieces. I didn't know if I was going to need them or not, but I definitely think I was going to see them on the camera, so I added them. Then I used some brown and black pigment powders in different areas with watered down isopropyl alcohol to fix them, and really started to weather the concrete of this piece. Then for all of the foliage. I've used products from Diorama Presepe a number of times. They just always look so incredible. And so when Fabio from Diorama Presepe reached out and wanted to send me some products for this project, I absolutely agreed. I started gluing on some vines around these columns and took different pieces from a couple of the different plants in purple and started building it up. I glued some green foam for leaves and then some purple from the plants onto these vines, and then just started building up the plants so that there were a lot of foliage outside of these archways. Then I took these amazing autumn and dead colored leaves and started sprinkling them around in different areas and gluing them in place with some watered down PVA glue and isopropyl alcohol. These products were sent to me for free, but I use them all the time, and I highly recommend getting their products if you want foliage for your diorama. There was one thing that I wanted to try, and that was to add leaves that aren't glued down, and then I could blow them to make them look like they're kind of gently blowing in the wind. I've seen Noelle Burd on Instagram and TikTok do this, and I thought I'd give it a try. I ended up changing the lighting around a little bit, but here are the finished shots. Right after I posted this video, I started my very first live stream on YouTube to celebrate 50,000 subscribers in my first year on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. I'm going to answer a bunch of questions, talk about next year and some of my plans, and maybe some announcements for the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button and thumbs up this video if you enjoyed these projects so I can continue making more. I also have a Patreon and a website where I sell 3D model STL files so you can download and 3D print some of the very same pieces that I've used in my projects. As always, I do thank my patrons a lot for the support and for keeping me going on this channel. And if you want to support the channel, that's a great way to do it. I'll see you next time.